why they were doing that. At one time, I even have suicidal thoughts. I should die, say that I'll follow my father because of the attachment which I was having with my father. And also, I could see that there is no life. My father is the one who used to work for us. My mother was just a peasant in the rural areas, farming, not a large-scale farmer, but just a small farming so that we can get food. Was she going to pay my school fees? Was she going to give us food? So all those things were worrying me. But through that grief, it shaped me to be a woman who I am today. If I hear anyone who lost a relative or who lost a husband or a close friend, I'm the first person to stand with that person, especially people who lost their husband. In 2017, I remember when Malawi Defense Forces, they lost some of their soldiers in war in DRC. You know, without having a profile, I looked for people who can assist me, so that I can offer grief counseling and empower those widows who lost their husbands. So through that loss of my father, it shaped me to be who I am today. So I think now I'll start to show my slides of the work for today. So I'll start with the outline of the presentation. My introduction will be of what is grief, followed by personality types of grief. Why is it important to talk about grief now? Myths about grief, forms of grief, stages of grieving, the process of provide grief counseling, tools and techniques of grief counseling, the do's and don'ts in grief counseling. Why is it important to talk about grief now? During this COVID-19 crisis, many people have lost loved ones. I think it is showing with the statistics that the global death for now, it is over 248,000 currently. And also in Africa, it is over 1,080. Then in Kenya, there are 24 deaths. But it doesn't mean that those are the only numbers in Kenya of Kenyans who have died or Africans who have died, because there are other Africans who have died in other countries, in other continents, and there are other Kenyans who have died in other countries, or other Zimbabweans who have died in other countries, but their statistics are not shown in their countries. Then during this time, people have lost jobs. Many people, they are not working because maybe their organization have cut the funds. So people, they've lost their jobs. This leads to income and livelihoods being affected. People, they don't have anything to depend. Most of people, like here in Kenya, they are living on handouts from the government. Value of their investments. For those people who, for example, those people who are in real estate, their investments have been affected because people, they can't pay rent now. And the income, they can't get income from it. Meaning people, they are suffering. And they are suffering from a lot of losses. And other losses, which include education for children who are in school, education for students who are in the universities. So what is grief? Grief is natural but painful response to the loss of someone loved or something very important to someone, such as a partner, job, finance, or even opportunities, like what I have explained before. For example, before COVID-19, you got a letter that you find a job in another country, and that opportunity will go because you're not able to travel because of COVID-19, or that opportunity will disappear because the fundings are no longer there. It means someone is going to lose a job. Then the grief process depends on many factors, such as personality, coping style, faith, life experiences, and how significant the loss was to someone. For example, I give you the loss of my father. It doesn't mean my other siblings, they've grieved for so long the way I've grieved. But because of my attachment to him, because of how he was significant to me, I grieved for long. Then I want to explain on personality types of grief. They are nomad. These people experience a variety of emotions during the grief process. And normally, they alternate back and forth between emotions. These include anger, depression, confusion. A nomad tend to experience all stages of grief as they deal with loss. As I said, the way we experience grief is different from an individual, depends with their personality or with their faith. Then there are memorialists. It's normally consumed with memories of their loved ones. For example, me, I can say I'm a memorialist because I was consumed with the memories of my father. And I end up doing the work of helping other people who experience the same loss like the one which I've experienced. Then normalizer. Use this loss as a motivation to mend broken relationships with the distant relatives and significant others. For example, someone who lost a job, it will be time to mend their relationship made with their friends, their former friends, their other relatives whom they used not to talk to, but they will start just to say, hi, I was reading on the social media the other day, and people were laughing, saying, you realize someone whom you didn't talk with for long, maybe for 5 years or for 6 years, and they are now talking to you, just saying hi. It is because of COVID-19. So it means COVID-19 have caused a lot of damage in people's lives. Then they are activists, choose to deal with loss by using it to find a meaning in their lives. For example, those people who start organizations, maybe for cancer foundations, they take that advantage maybe to mobilize, maybe to make people understand more about that loss. They are almost the same like the memorialists. Then they are seekers, hope to gain some type of understanding of the word and try to find meaning and a sense of belonging in their own life to deal with grief. For example, someone who starts religious things seriously like never before, or else those people who are not serious religiously, you'll find them going to church or going to the mosque more than before, seeking high powers from above. Then manifestations of grief. I put, there are some examples which I put. A teenager commits suicide. Like I've given an example before that I almost commit suicide because of the loss of my father. There's a nurse who is feeling lonely, who is showing that she's angry. There's this man who is crying. Those are the manifestations of grief, and I want to explain them further. Grieving has both emotional and physical manifestation. Emotional manifestation includes crying, sadness, anger, guilt, fear, insomnia, self-isolation, or suicidal thoughts, or even committing suicide on its own. We can even see in our media, like in the past few days, there are people who are committing suicide because of loss of relatives, because of loss of joy. People are committing suicide, especially our medical practitioners who are helping us, who are working very hard to save lives. Some of them, they are committing suicide. Their physical manifestation, this include fatigue, nausea, weight loss or gain, body aches or pains, heart problems or relapse. For our good friends who have managed to overcome the use of substance, and you would find them, because they don't have anything to do, they will relapse. And it's not their problem, but it is because of that loss of that loss of interacting with other people, that loss of being lonely. Then forms of grief in the context of death. There is complicated grief, intense state of mourning because the loss of a loved one was traumatic and sudden. This is common with ambiguous loss. We can give an example of this COVID-19. People are dying. Maybe today the person will be tested will be positive COVID-19. Then after 2 days or 3 days, that person will die. This one will cause complicated grief to someone who lost a relative through that way. Then there is anticipatory grief, experienced when the death of a loved one is due to chronic illness. For example, our relatives who have cancer. You know, many of their relatives, they will grieve, they will mourn those people while they are still alive. By the time when they die, you'll find people will not cry. I remember I attended the funeral of our close friend. The wife was not even crying. She was the leader in singing. It doesn't mean she was not grieving, but she was grieving, and also she had grieved before the death of the husband. Then unanticipated grief, unexpected loss due to short illness or an accident. This type of grief is traumatic. Then we go on to the stages of grieving. The first stage is denial, avoidance of reality. This is a common way of defense. You just believe maybe my relative will come back again, at which that's not the case. He's dead and he's gone. Then we move on to stage 2, anger. Feeling of anger directed to other people. In our African culture, that's when you find people will say, my relative was bewitched by so and so, at which that person was sick. Then that anger is directed to another person. Then there's bargaining, internal reflections, and attempt to reconcile with the events. Then there is depression, stage 4, reality of loss, sinking and causing pain. That's when you'll find after the death of a loved one, someone will be sick. Mostly it is because of depression. I remember that same year when my father died, I thought I would lose my mother because she was sick. And it was because of depression. I thank God up to today, she's still alive, but it was because of depression. Then our last stage is of acceptance. I can give my example as a person who is in acceptance. I have accepted that my father have died, and I moved on with life, and I find things to do in memory of him. Then myths about grieving. The pain of loss will go fast if you ignore it. Is it true? Because people, there are other people who believe when the pain of the loss stays for a long, it's not normal, it's abnormal. Is it really true? We move on. If you don't cry, it means you have not grieved enough. Like my other friend whom I gave an example previously, when I said she was leading in singing on the funeral of the husband. Was she not mourning the husband? Was she not grieved? Was it not painful to her? We move on. Moving on with life means forgetting about the loss. For example, those who got married or those who remarry very fast when the husband or the wife died. Are those people not mourning? I remember, for those who are here in Kenya, those who know Pastor Terry, she always gives testimony of how she lost her first husband and how she got remarried again. And when it is time, when it is the day when the husband died, she took her time to remember the husband. Is she not mourning? Is she not feeling the pain of losing the husband? We don't know. Grieving should not take less than a year. Is it normal? Is it abnormal for someone to grieve more than a year? Then we move on. The process of providing grief counseling. Step number 1, emphasize with the person who has suffered a loss. As you seek to understand the level and stages of grieving a client is in, because clients, they are different according to faith, personality, experiences, like what I have explained before. So it is very important to understand the client. Assure the client that it's okay to express emotions, including crying, or being sad, or being confused with the death. Just assure the client that it's normal, and one day he or she will go over it. Step 3, help the client to confront his feelings and ultimately to accept that loss is part of life, while monitoring unlikely negative behaviors or thoughts like suicidal thoughts or suicidal behaviors. Support the client to leverage positive social norms, cultural and religious beliefs, which can facilitate recovery from pain. We move on to step 3. Encourage the client to create time to reflect and grieve, including through memory books, surveying photos with others, and with close relations where helpful. Then step number 6, encourage the client to leverage family relations and other support systems by spending time sharing love, memory, and future perspectives. Step number 7, help the client to go over the pain and face the future with patience and sensitivity. This may take a bit of time, weeks or months or even years. I remember when I was school, I didn't even see future when I lost my father. I just saw my life just ending there. I remember there's one of my close friends who was telling me, do you know that Idzai, of course we were still young, but she always encouraged me, Idzai, there's future. Idzai, there's future. And through those encouragements, I see the future. Then step number 8, follow up regularly until the client is recovering and able to cope with the loss. Then tools and techniques for grief counseling. There's bibliotherapy. This is the use of literature, journaling, and reflect on time spent with a loved one before they die. This includes the use of pictures. We encourage the clients to look, to have a look on those pictures and remember the life which they used to have. Then there's expressive techniques. This entails creation of opportunity for the client to find ways to express feelings and the nature of relationship with the lead, including drawing, poetry, and singing. Then rituals for remembrance. These include cultural, religious, and other memorials, such as commemorative events. And it depends with culture. Music and art encourage the client to revelate on music of choice, especially those which gives hope, as well as playing songs like liked by the lost loved ones, depending on taste, portraits, and paintings. And also, religious should be encouraged. On this note, I just want to play music, which I once used when I was helping those widows in 2017, and it gives them hope. Because of our time, I didn't play the whole song. I just want us to write in the chat box, what did we feel? How did we feel when we hear that type of music before we moved on? We can write our answers in the chat box. And Helen, you can help me to read the answers.
Okay, Idzai, I will do that.
All right, thank you.
Okay, so Idzai, someone is saying they feel encouraged. Somebody else is saying it is refreshing. I think somebody else says, oh. Vespers, of course I have to say who it is. He says there is hope and life even after loss. Wow. Someone is saying comforted. Great presentation. Thank you, Idzai. I feel like I have been through loss of my baby. Someone else is saying eye opener. Someone is saying here, I felt that all is not lost. I still have hope.
Thank you,
Someone
Helen.
saying,
We can move on with the presentation. Thank you, Helen.
Okay.
Let me move on with the presentation. Thank you all with your answers. Yes, we continue with the techniques to use during grief counseling. There is cognitive behavioral therapy. The aim of this technique is to identify thoughts in the client, which influences his or her feelings, challenge them for accuracy, and help the client replace those thoughts with more realistic and positive ones. I can give an example of my client whom I was saying when I facilitated the grief loss of the soldiers. You know, there were many different types of people there. Others, they were having small babies. Others, they were newlyweds. I remember one lady said, it's like I'm cursed Because why is it soon after I got married, I lost my husband? We can help them through cognitive therapy to change their mind, to show them that there is tomorrow, there is still hope. Then we move on to role play. This entails helping a client to adjust and to build new skills required to move on with life. For example, I give a classic example of my mother. After the loss of my father, through the support from other people, through role playing, she managed to raise us. She managed to provide food for us. She managed even to pay school fees until I finished even university. No, there's still more life. So it is important to help our clients to acquire new skills. Evocative language, carefully use of tough words to help the client to come up with terms with grief. Then there's memory box, use of photos, stories, events, drawings, reminiscence about the loved ones. I remember after using the memory box during that session, you could see that the women who were there, they were free. And you know, they start to open up about the loved ones, the funny, which they used to have as a family with the deceased. They don't in grief counseling. Do not play down emotions of clients. Do not rush healing. Do not take away their pain because they are still feeling it. Do not tell them you'll get over it soon because we are different individuals. Don't shut them up when they express themselves by saying, I know how you feel. Every person is different, like what I've explained before. My final thoughts of grief and loss. People cope with loss in different ways because of culture, religion, personality, circumstance surrounding the loss. No one size fits all. Every person is different and have their own different ways of coping with loss and grief. Thank you all for listening to my presentations. And that's the end. And now we are open to questions. Thank you. Over to you, Helen.
Wow, thank you very much, Idzai, for that wonderful presentation. I have really enjoyed, even as I am listening and internalizing and imagining to myself the people who have lost their loved ones during this COVID-19 period. I have seen some people close to me, they have passed away, and their families, they had to do the meetings online. They couldn't have to go to their homes to visit them. The funerals, we were only able to participate by viewing them online, maybe on Facebook Live. And I'm asking myself, how much more or in what ways can we be able to comfort these people? Maybe coming from where I come from or our African setting, we want to go and be with the people and mourn with them and encourage them and have meetings. Now we can't be able to do all that. So in what other ways can we be able to show them we are there with you, we are mourning with you, we are together with you even as you go through this process? Yes.
Yes, Helen. This time which we are in is a trying time. There is nothing we can do because of social distancing. In other countries, they allow like 50 people or at a funeral. So it means not everyone will be able to attend. But what we can do is we can call, we can do group chats, we can even pray with our relatives over the phone. We can check how are they coping until this pandemic is over. Thank you, Helen.
Okay, thank you, Idzai. And I think maybe you can open the floor to anybody else who wants to give their input. Have you experienced or have you lost someone close to you during this COVID-19 period? And how did you go about the whole process? And also, I'm seeing somebody by the name of, someone saying they have 2 questions. I think we can go ahead and ask the question. Okay, so here is one question I am seeing. Somebody is asking, do we have a bereavement tool that can be used for evaluating satisfaction for bereaved clients? Lelo is asking to all of us. It is open for discussion. Do we have a bereavement tool that can be used for evaluating satisfaction for bereaved clients?
I think for this one, it is open to everyone.
Yes, so
Everyone can answer you and can answer the question.
And as we think of that one, Rose Bibo is asking, how do you help someone who is stuck in their grief?
Now, for that one, for someone who is stuck in grief, I give an example of myself that I grieve for my father. More than 4 years, I was always crying. It depends with the personality, but what you can do is continue encouraging the client, not to overshadow their feelings of grieving. If there is anyone who can add, thank you.
I think I can add.
Yes.
This is Vespers from Kilifi. I'm looking at the question which has been asked by the previous person, that is there a guideline or a tool on grief? To me, I'll say I don't think there's one, but it depends on how you have planned yourself. Because when you are doing a session as a counselor, there's definitely the presenting issues and underlying issues. And as you carry on with your client who's perhaps is grieving and perhaps who is stuck, you keep on managing the presenting issues, because the client might come with different types of issues as he's grieving, but the only thing that you can be able to journey with your client is what does she want you to deal with at that moment. Because I'm looking, for example, the client will come perhaps in the stages of grieving, as Idzai has just shared in relation to what Kubler-Ross talks about, the stages of grieving and loss. If the client is still in the bargaining and she's having a lot of issues in bargaining, deal with that. The client perhaps this time comes with the issues concerning now, perhaps now she's in depression phase, and he has come with presenting issues of depression. So you deal with those depression, depression. As you go on to a point where the client will be able to accept, and as the client accept, might be still acceptance, but still stuck with those long forms of grieving. Then you realize that this client now you need Hello?
Yes, we can hear you, Vespers. Continue.
Yes. Now you continue supporting your client after care sessions. That perhaps you have agreed with your client that you need to restructure that as she moves on, because you cannot stuck with your client throughout. So you keep on managing your client in after care sessions. Like, for example, you call a client and ask the client, for example, how are you, my friend? How are you, my client? Just to check on how are you coping up with the now after terminating our session. So at least the client will know that there's somebody who is there to support. Then after that, you leave the client now to walk alone. Those are my thoughts. The other thing is perhaps I can be able to say is, thank you, Idzai, for what you have just shared. I encountered having a journey with a client with cancer in our hospital, and grief management is a very challenging thing, especially when to long-term disease clients. Because when you're sharing, I just remembered when this boy asked me when the mother before died. After 12 hours, the mother died. And because, after cancer, things change very fast. And I could talk to the doctor and to be able to know what to talk with the boy and how to support the boy. And it's like, and I was telling the boy now, your mom might be dying anytime from now. The question the boy asked me, what time would be my mom dying? And I got stuck. And at some point, I phoned myself back and I told the client that we don't know what time your mother will die. But as they're looking of things, I think you've seen your mother changing from time to time, and any time she might be dying. So will you be able to talk to your mother and tell your mother something? And it makes me feel good because she was brave enough to talk to her mother and tell her mother bye as you're going. You know that you're with. We go and pray for us. We are here looking at what you what you have invested for us. It's a good feeling. But again, it's not easy to be able to support someone and telling somebody that your mother or your sister or somebody who is so dearly is going to die. It's not an easy thing. But again, what I'm saying that I've learned from what Idzai has shared is about the cognitive thoughts. So you can be able to change their thoughts to be able to reach to a point of acceptance. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vespers.
Hello,
Yes, go ahead.
this is Agatha Mumo.
Yes, Agatha, I had seen your hand was raised up.
Yeah, I'm a psychologist in Nakuru Acadian Counseling Center.
Mhm.
So my contribution is towards what Vespers has said about the question about whether there's a tool for loss and grief. Yeah? Apparently, there are tools for loss and grief. Even when you Google, you can get some tools. Like there's a particular tool that I use for loss and grief. It basically looks at the emotions experienced during the loss, how long the loss has happened, and you're able to grade how your client is. But like he's saying, loss is really complicated and you have to handle it case by case, depending with how the client is presenting. Like, for example, when you're dealing with children who are going through loss and grief, sometimes it's really difficult, depending with the spirituality of that child, how close they were to the person, what fears they have, their age, and what they understand about the death. So, like he's saying, it's really, you have to handle it case by case. But as pertains to, yes, there are tools, and if you just Google, you can loss and grief, you can get the tools. You look at them and probably customize one for your client.
Okay, thank you so much for that, Agatha. Agatha is one of our consultants, counselors and psychologists, and she did a wonderful presentation on embracing online work, which she has promised she will repeat very soon for the sake of the ones who missed. Okay, I think we can proceed from there. I had seen another question from Fatima. She's asking, how do we help children process grief? A very key question.
Hello, ongoing.
Yes.
I think before I come in, can other professionals help on that question?
Yes. I work with children. My name is Chris Maposa. I work with children. So I think one of the ways that we can help children process grief is getting them involved in the funeral itself. Make sure that they probably understand that either the parent or the daddy or mom is passed on. What does that mean? Make sure that you take them through that process. The time of burying, they will have to be part and parcel of burial, board viewing if possible. And after that, you work with them even after the funeral, because in most cases, people leave the family after burial, they go. But you as a therapist, you need to work to continue working with the kids and to to offer therapy, dialoguing with them, let them ask questions, try to answer them as much as you can. If they are a believer, pray with them. And by so doing, we see a lot of children, they quickly go over grief. But once again, they are different, of course. Like someone said already that you don't put people on the equality. Individuals are individuals.
Okay, thank you very much, Chris, for that response. I'm seeing someone is asking, can we classify the closure of schools and the certain open dates as a loss? And they're saying, I feel with the COVID pandemic, learners are grieving the loss of missing school with no idea of when they go back. Maybe you can hear some response on that.
Yes, hello?
Yes, go ahead, Idzai.
Yes, it's a form of loss, what our children, they are going through. Like what I've said on my definition, I've said grief is a natural pain. Respond to the loss of someone, loved one, or something very important to someone. That's when we give an example of finances, job opportunities, even school, because school is important to our children. I remember the last week I was having a session with children and I told them, can you write something which you lost, which is very important to you during this time of COVID-19? Guess what? Everyone said, I lost school because I miss my friends. I miss going to school. I don't know when is school going to be opened. Thank you, Helen.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Idzai. I want to read a comment here. Someone is saying, Lillian Washuma is actually saying, I lost an uncle to cancer and was buried on Tuesday. We were not able to travel, including some of his children. We are using the virtual chats to process the grief. Not easy, but we have chosen to care for each other as we go through the process. Thank you for that, Lillian. And someone else is asking here, Lelo is asking, how do you address the grief and loss, especially when someone has lost their job?
Wangoi, is it possible you can repeat the question again?
Okay. How do you address the grief and loss, especially when someone has lost their job during this pandemic?
Yes, any other professionals to come in with their input for that question?
Yeah, let me try something. Losing a job is quite a challenging thing because, you know, sometimes it's abruptly, like it has happened now with this COVID. No one had planned for it, you know, unless somebody had alternatives. It's quite challenging, I want to be honest. However, like the song which was played before, there is after every situation. So I think from counseling perspective, we don't have a prescription. I always say that. And explore some of the strength he might have or she might have alternatives, way forward. If client gets stuck, you open windows so that she or he try to see, could there be any possibility of looking for another job? Is a person a qualified person, or what kind of a job did he or she lose? What are other things he might be able to do? You know, like in counseling, everybody with a problem has got a solution to it anyway. So we are there to facilitate and offer therapy which calms the grief, something like that.
Okay, thank you very much, Chris. Anybody else who wants to give their feedback, even as I read more questions and more feedback on the chat? Someone is requesting Idzai, Fatma. She's saying, I have a question on the slide of personality of grief. If you can go back on it, the nomad personality.
Yes, I'm back on the slide.
Maybe you can explain it so that they can be able to understand it better.
The nomad, okay. Nomad personality experience a variety of emotions during grief process and normally alternate back and forth between the emotions. These include anger, depression, and confusion. Mostly we see these people, like for me, I have children whom I look after, who lost all their parents. I could identify after reading this, that this one is a nomad. And mostly these people, they experience all the stages of grief because of that time which they took going back maybe to denial, coming back to depression, going back to accept. They can even accept that their loved one have died and they go back again. And it's normal. And you know, there are people who just normalize. I can give an example of normalize, those people who normalize the situation. Anyway, my dad died and it's over and it's over. And even me, I can put myself after my story in the nomad personality type, that I grieved until I reached to acceptance years later. I don't know if you have, if I've answered you very well, Fatma.
As Fatma is responding, I've seen Catherine Mutiani, your hand is raised. Maybe you can ask your question or you give your comment.
Thank you, Helen and Idzai, for the wonderful presentation. I just wanted to give an input on loss of a job. And when you're helping someone who has lost a job, first is just to help the person go through what it all means by losing the job. What are the kind of feelings that the person is dealing with? Explore on the thoughts that the person has, explore what it really means for the person to lose a job. And unlike losing a loved one, when there is no opportunity of the person coming back, losing a job, there is hope, like the song has been played, is now helping the person not to beat themselves up, not to negatively judge themselves for probably maybe losing the job. Help the person to explore what are the options, what kind of support does the person have, maybe family support, maybe exploring on the savings that the person has, maybe exploring on the alternatives that the person has on earning a living, and looking at forging at a way forward, and encouraging the person to probably join job search groups or companies post up that they ready to, they're looking for a job, or even the other ways of income that they can think of. Are there any businesses that they can do? What are the things that they have always planned to do that maybe that can give income that maybe because of their job they never got time to do them? So is first letting the person stabilize mentally and allowing themselves to take time to process through that loss, and then shift focus on what are now the other ways in which they can still continue to get income, and letting the person not to feel ashamed of seeking support because of probably the social standing that they may feel they could be having. Yes, that would be my input. And then maybe in addition to contributing to the whole area of loss generally, especially losing loved ones, from personal experience after having many losses close to me, every loss is different. Every loss that one loses a loved one, you find different ways of processing it. And like from the presentation based on relationships that you had based on how the death occurred, was it a sudden death? Like I'll give example of myself. There's two deaths that were really tough for me to be able to process. And those were for my two brothers who died on different occasions through accidents. And it took a very long time now. It's for one, it's almost 7 years. For another one is 9 years. But it took me almost 4 years for me to feel I can talk about their loss without breaking down or without wishing that they could come back. So relationships is very, very important in helping the person explore what the person who is dead, what it means for the person. And working with clients who have gone through loss, I loved what Idzai presented, you know, the song. And in one of my sessions, I would integrate songs with my clients, like playing the favorite songs for the person who has died, connect to the person. I would also integrate prayers, especially if the client is okay with it, which is client-led and based on the client's belief system. So helping someone cope through with loss and grief is I think one of the toughest things that as therapists we may experience, but we work with what the client is presenting at the moment. And like Vespa said, what is the stage of loss and grief that the client is presenting? What are the issues that are emerging? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Catherine, for that. I see Galaxy A20. Your hand has been raised for quite some time. You can unmute yourself and make your comment or question.
Okay, thank you so much. Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
Hello. Yes, my question is, what about in a situation whereby you have made financial commitments, right, after the loss of someone? Like I've lost my brother, it has been years now, in a fatal accident, but there are times when I can't, you know, provide for the family, like I can't fulfill the commitments that I've made, and I feel so bad for it. And that's when grieving starts. I cry and I can't even help myself. How can I get through this? How can I get out of this situation whereby I begin to blame myself for not being able to fulfill the commitments that I've made to my brother's kids, to my brother's wife? I don't know how you can help me in this situation.
Okay, thank you. As we respond to that, maybe you can get your name.
Nelly
Okay.
Madea. Yes.
Where are you calling us from?
from South Africa. I am Idzai's schoolmate. We were together in college, and yeah. Thank you for the presentation.
Yes, Mr. Maposa, can you help Nelly?
Yes, for sure. I'm not so sure if I can help here right away, but what I'm thinking is that probably, let me do this. Right, what I think probably if she's willing, she might need a session or some sessions to really go through counseling session or sessions, because right here, I do not think that there is any helpful or meaningful advice that I could offer to her, because her question brings a lot of questions to me, which I may need to explore more. For example, share more what kind of commitment she made and what is the status of her brother's family, how many children, what is the wife doing, how many are they in the family who might be there for this family that need help. What does she do? She says, sometimes I can't help myself, you know. So what I'm trying to put across is that there are so many questions that I may want to probably ask her in a session, and then as we work together, we'll make to find means and ways. So that's all I could say.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Maposa. I can connect you with Nelly.
He's willing anyway.
All right, thank you so much.
Okay, cool.
Over to you, Helen.
Wow, thank you very much, Idzai and Mafosa, for your willingness to be able to reach out to Nelly. And I'm glad that we are able to reach out and help somebody, and even through this, people are learning and they're getting assisted. As we are almost coming to the end of the session today, and someone at the beginning had asked, does the cycle of grief recur? Does it something which continues happening? Open to anybody to respond.
May I go ahead, please?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, so I would like to respond to what the other lady said. Sorry, I forgot her name. But from what she's talking about, I feel she's saying the financial strain is what causes her to go back to the pain of losing someone. And maybe what I can offer is just to request, what can we do about finances? Yes, Chris has said that you can explore who else can help. What does the wife do? How can she maybe get some a job or something to do if she can be able to earn income? But that is outside. But within yourself, maybe you can have budgets that are within what you can manage. And I know you may feel that you want to give these kids what their father used to give them, but that might be a bit unrealistic. So just work with what you have. If you can just budget with what you have, and then that way you will not have like a burden. And I can relate because I lost my father a long time ago. But when I am in need, financial problems, I always go back to, if my dad was here, I would have asked him for this and would have provided. So I somehow feel that pain also, and just try, if it's possible, if it makes sense to you, to just have like a budget or work within your financial capability, yeah, and then explore other things as well. You can also contact Chris and anybody else who will be willing to help you one-on-one sessions so that you explore everything that this does to you or makes you feel or get more help. And then, what else did I want to say? Okay, that's it. Thank you. And thank you for this presentation. You're doing an awesome job. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Brenda.
Wow, thank you very much, Brenda, for the encouragement and that insight to Nelly.
Yes.
I would want to request that if there's anybody else with a comment or question, they can make it. We are winding up. Yes, go ahead.
I'm trying to. My name is Vespas. I'm trying to answer the person who have just said that can grief recur. To me, I'll say yes. It should. It might, and it should to some. And this one depends if the client has not had closure. Because yes, we have closure with our client, and when you have a closure, then recurring or the vicious cycle of the grief happening to you, then it will not. Remembering the latter client, the latter person has just said about remembering about the father and issues concerning finances. So if she had not dealt with issues concerning finances, and now she gets to get stuck on issues concerning finances, automatically, definitely that grief will recur. She'll start remembering, oh, I wish my dad could be there. But now if she's stable up enough and had closure on issues concerning finances, how the dad used to support, then it will not recur again. But again, yes, we lose people and people go. And it depends on our African culture. How do you grieve your people to a point that you feel that they're okay? You know, I'm looking at what others do in other places. You hear that there's some people who build a house and call that house Vespas or Helen. And they'll cherish that house and take care of that house like that person they have lost. So that's one way of closing up the grief in one way or another. Some people, some other places, they look at a pet and they give a pet that name. So realize that pet is very much important in their lives because it depicts the person that they have lost. So that's one of the closure in one way or another. I think that's a statement I needed to say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Vespas, for that. Idzai, anything you want to add as we come to the end?
I just want to say thank you everyone for attending this session. Thank you so much for your contributions and for your time. I enjoyed myself, and for my friends from Malawi, Zikomo Kwambiri, and from my friends from Zimbabwe, Maita Basa, Mauya kuzondisapota, and from my friends from Kenya, Asante Sana. Thank you all. I think now you can see my face. Helen, can you put that screen where we can see everyone as we end the session?
People can, you can unmute your video. If there's anything like unmuting your video. And Idzai, even as we wind up, I would request you play for us the song again. There's so much demand for that song. I think it had something in it. And I can see you have put your contact information on the screen as well. So in case you want to get in touch with Idzai, her contact is on the screen. For everybody who wants to get the slides of the presentation, I request you pay 100 shillings. And the number to which you pay is 0721 67 6554. In addition to that, we have been having these sessions every day. Tomorrow we have an interesting one on personality types and how people are coping with the COVID-19 given the personality. So I will invite you to tune in as well. In case you are not in the WhatsApp group and you'd like to join in, please send your number as well, then we can put you in the group. That way you can stay updated to what is happening. So thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Sorry, about the payment, I've asked a question. I'm in Zimbabwe right now. How do we pay? And another person from South Africa asked the same question. You know, how do we pay? I've calculated that something like 94 cents US dollars. Hey, Idzai.
I think Mr. Ramaphosa will side chat on that one.
What do we do about that one?
We'll side chat.
Oh, okay, cool. Thank
Yes.
you. Great.
Thank you so much.
Yay.
Let
Yay.
me play the music now. Thank you so much, Helen.
You're welcome.